Alright guys, so today I'm going to be reacting to this video that I found online entitled Tony Ferguson Has a Plan, uploaded by a user named Yaheen. I think that's how you pronounce it. Anyways, so this Yaheen explains how Tony Ferguson has a grand scheme and all this with his losing streak and etc. so on and so forth, with it leading to Tony Ferguson being the ultimate fighter in all aspects of any combat sport whatsoever. So let's watch the video.
I'm gonna break down Tony Ferguson's grand plan, and hopefully by the end of this video, you casuals can realize that we need to let Tony Ferguson cook no matter what. It all starts with this interview Tony Ferguson did with ESPN, and this is where my prediction starts in my head, that Tony Ferguson is here for something bigger. Tony talks about how he reunited with his old team, the team that made the people fear him.
We're training with a new team, my old team, classic fight team with Tyler Wombles and his guys. I haven't worked with them. We had a mutual friend that kind of burned everything up, but then we kind of rekindled a lot of stuff over the years. And then I finally reached out to him. And I said, hey, basically, let's work. And I showed up, and it was like we never missed a beat.
Tony also talks about how his mindset changed and how he needed to be put back into the position where he needed to learn again.
Like, you know what? You got to get your shit together, Tony. Like, it's like everybody says, oh, you're slower. Or I got tired of just hearing. I put myself in a better position with good people. Not like I said, not like I wasn't with bad people. It's just I have to put myself in positions where I can learn again and become a student again, and then go back and work with it. And fortunately, right now, I have a lot of good people around me.
And the reason why I bring this up is because this is the main source, the main bread and butter as to why Tony hasn't been himself lately, and that is his mindset. Tony, specifically in this interview, constantly reminds us that he got back to his original team and restarted his mind to where he needed to think like a student again. Tony is basically telling us that ever since he had that interim belt wrapped around his waist, he didn't progress any further in terms of skill. Tony even describes this feeling. He calls himself out.
If you don't get tested, if you don't have somebody testing you and teaching you new things, you start to plateau. You kind of keep up with the same thing, and then what you do is you stop learning. I'm back in that good position where I've been learning new stuff.
And just a heads up for the casuals out there, Tony Ferguson is not retiring anytime soon.
So it's true. The internet is pushing for Tony Ferguson to retire, and I see that. Do I think he should retire? Maybe, but then again, it's his choice. I think he has a few fights still left in him that he could win. And I think overall, if he really wanted to go another maybe 5 to 10 fights, I think that's highly possible, highly doable for Tony Ferguson.
Tony says this himself. Retirement hasn't even crossed his mind.
I got all these things, these people like putting all these ideas in my head. Hey, you need to retire. You need to retire. You need to retire. It never fazed me to want to retire. Like, I don't want to retire. It's not in my thought process.
And you know what else Tony said? To all the haters out there who are saying that Tony needs to retire, why don't you retire?
And that's the part that hurts, is when I get that question asked to me, because I'm like, I get all the, like, what are you talking about? You know, like, hey, you're retired, right? I'm like, no, I'm not retired. Like, you go retire. Like,
at the end of this interview, Tony does give us a little hint about his grand master plan. Tony does talk about Conor McGregor and how he wants to fight Conor and how he has his eyes locked onto him.
You know, going after Khabib for a long time and going after McNuggets. This is about as close as it's going to get for right now. So as soon as we get through this, dude, we'll go after Conor.
And this right here is where my theory comes into play. Okay, so let me cook. We do know that Tony Ferguson got back to his original team that got him into champion level. We do also know that Tony Ferguson's mindset has changed to where he needs to learn again. He needs to go out.
So I think it's not super far-fetched that Tony Ferguson wants to keep fighting. I think he, like I said, I think he has a few fights still left in him. I think training with David Goggins helped, but not exactly what he needed at the time. Maybe a little bit more sparring, maybe a little bit more takedown defense, you know, etc. Kickboxing, whatever the case may be.
there and ask for help. We do also know that Tony Ferguson isn't retiring anytime soon. And he also has his eyes on Conor McGregor. But that's not all. Tony Ferguson goes on another interview with ESPN and talks about Khabib and that he has a plan. And for all this time, all his losing streaks, he's trying to intentionally lure back Khabib back into the cage and have the fight that we all wanted. Tony Ferguson versus Khabib.
At any point over the last 6 losses, did you feel like you were accepting the defeat?
No, it's just taking fights so that way I can get Khabib to come back. And we almost coached against each other. So he took the bait. But something happened to him, so something different where he didn't even go coach Islam. So it took a lot for him to not want to be able to show up.
So I hope you casuals can finally understand and realize what Tony sees. His perspective. Now enough with the glazing. Let's get into my theory. Like I said before, Tony Ferguson has made it crystal clear that he is not retiring anytime soon. And he also wants to fight Conor McGregor and Khabib eventually. Which makes me come up with the...
And I kind of skip through this video. Anyways, with all this guy is saying, I mean, I totally get it. Tony Ferguson wants to come, he wants to, obviously he wants to win, but in the end he wants Khabib to come back into the UFC so he could then fight Khabib and beat Khabib, which Khabib has plans of coming back. I've seen on his Twitter, on, numerous other videos that Khabib supposedly wants to come back. I'm not quite too sure how authentic that claim is, but yeah, that's in the works. So, Tony Ferguson, if this is part of some big plan, it's in a way panning out to his favor. Not really, because he's taking a lot of L's in the process. But I don't think that really matters to him. I think the only thing that Tony Ferguson wants to do is to fight and beat Khabib at this point, regardless of how long it takes. So, yeah. That being said, I think that's the end of this reaction video, and thank you guys for watching.